What were you both up to, sneaking away in the middle of the funeral? Despite my angry shout, my son and his wife just smirked. We couldn't stay at the funeral. We had to prepare for our move, they said. Upon closer inspection, I noticed the furniture had been swapped with theirs, and my belongings were piled up haphazardly near the entrance. What's going on? I asked, facing their astonished expressions. Starting today, we'll be living in this house. It would be best if you, mother-in-law, went to a nursing home or something, Lisa said with a grin. Are you serious? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Yes, of course we're serious. Please retire and make way for us, old lady, my son added. I was shocked that they would do such a thing on the day of the funeral. But I quickly composed myself. Fine then, do as you please, I told Lisa with a forced smile. It seemed my son and his wife had completely forgotten something important. My name is Susan. I turned 51 this year. My pride and joy is my son William. He's been kind-hearted since he was a child, and he grew up to be a fine young man who cares for his parents. After graduating from college, William got a job in a company in New York City, but for the first few years he was assigned to work in Nebraska. It was lonely to be apart from William, but for his growth, my husband and I saw him off with smiles. Mom, are you and Dad doing well? William would call frequently. No health problems, he'd ask. At first, William, who had started living alone in a new place, called us frequently. Yes, your father and I are both fine. How about you, William? Are you eating well? Is work not too busy? I'd respond. I'm all right. Well, I eat out a lot, but I think of your cooking and pay attention to my nutrition. I want to eat your home-cooked meals, but I'll do my best here until I get used to work, William would assure us. My husband and I were relieved to hear our son's enthusiasm for his new job. But after a few months, William stopped contacting us as often. He could at least tell us if he's coming home for the holidays, even by the end of the year, I think. But he hadn't contacted us and didn't even reply to our emails. So in frustration, I called William's cell phone. Hello? A woman with an unfamiliar voice answered. Is this William's cell phone? I asked. Yeah, but are you a friend of Liam's? The woman replied. Liam. I was puzzled by the name. I heard William's voice in the background. Lisa, who are you talking to? Then Lisa, called by that name, answers William so that I can hear. Hello, William finally answered the phone. Oh, Mom, what's up? Instead of scolding the woman who insulted me, William coldly replied. Confused, I responded. Well, I was worried because you never contacted us. Are you coming home for Christmas? And is the girl who answered the phone earlier your girlfriend? Piss off, William said, using a word I had never heard him use before. What? I was shocked. I said you're pissing me off. Stop interfering in my life. It's so irritating, William yelled before hanging up. There was a time during his teenage years when he became cold, but I never imagined he would suddenly become so rude after becoming an adult. I stood there dumbfounded with the phone in my hand. Seeing my expression, my husband worriedly asked, What's wrong? Did you talk to William? I shared with my husband about the rude woman on the phone and how William had told me to piss off. Maybe it's her influence or maybe it's just him growing up. Let's leave him be for now, my husband suggested. Taking his advice, I restrained myself from contacting William. A year later, with almost no contact from William, he suddenly finished his rural assignment and called to say he was coming back to New York. As we waited for him at home, there was an unfamiliar woman standing beside our son whom we hadn't seen before. William, who is this? I asked. It's Lisa. I'm marrying her, William replied casually. My husband and I were surprised by William's words and looked at the woman, but Lisa didn't greet us and just talked to William. Is this your parents' house? It looks so old-fashioned and uncool, she remarked. Upon hearing her voice, I suddenly realized that she was the woman who had answered my phone call a year ago. When I gave my husband a pleading look, he immediately understood and asked Lisa, Seriously, Lisa, how long have you been dating our son? Huh, I don't remember. Are you the type who cares about how many years you've been dating, mister? Hilarious for an old man, she retorted. My husband, who had been polite to Lisa, was left with his mouth hanging open at her response. Instead of scolding her for her words, William just laughed along with her. This isn't going to work out, my husband muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. I couldn't agree more. We were against our son's marriage, but he and Lisa had already registered their marriage without listening to our opinions. They rented an apartment nearby and started their new life together. You're already married. What about the wedding ceremony? I couldn't help but wonder. Shocked by the news, I asked William. We don't really need a ceremony. Lisa thinks it's a waste of money, he replied. Despite living in a pricey rental apartment, William and Lisa often came to our house for dinner, claiming they didn't have enough money. Although we were happy to see William, Lisa constantly criticized my cooking. Mother-in-law, can't you make more fashionable dishes? This doesn't look good in photos at all, she'd say. I'm not making it for photos. If you have a problem, you don't have to eat it, I'd respond. But Lisa didn't seem bothered. After a year, William started to become more like Lisa, and he would insult us every time he visited. One day, after William and Lisa arrived, I was about to go shopping. William looked down on me and said, Mom, what do you think I called you for yesterday? You should have bought the ingredients beforehand. You're so inefficient. Both my husband and I began to dread William and Lisa's visits. Amidst this, I received even worse news. My husband was diagnosed with cancer. The doctor told us he had only 6 months left to live. Surprisingly, William and Lisa visited my husband in the hospital, perhaps concerned about his condition. After some conversation, they quickly left the room. I hurried to catch up with them to express my gratitude, but I overheard their conversation in the hallway. Your father is in a private room, huh? Isn't that expensive? What a waste of money. Yeah, I thought the same thing. It's not like he's going to survive anyway, so the treatment costs are pointless. It's stupid to spend money on someone who's going to die anyway. True. Hey, Liam, let's get your parents' house once your dad dies. But my mom will still be there. I wish your mother would just follow him quickly. Yeah, it's just a matter of time with her. William and Lisa were making fun of my husband's struggle with his illness and my care for him behind our backs. I noticed my emotions were getting out of control, and I felt like I would lose my composure if I met them in this state. So I returned to the hospital room where my husband was waiting to settle my feelings for a moment. What's wrong? Were you able to express your gratitude to the two of them? My husband asked when he saw me. I relayed the conversation I had overheard in the hallway to my husband, who had been listening quietly, but I could tell he was trembling with anger. I can't believe they would say such things, he muttered, seemingly making a decision. I have an idea. The next day, my husband called William and Lisa into the hospital room. What do you want? We already visited you yesterday. William and Lisa appeared displeased to have their weekend interrupted. I want to talk about the inheritance after my death, my husband said calmly. At the mention of inheritance, Lisa's eyes lit up. Liam is the only son, so the inheritance should be his right. How much is it? As Lisa eagerly leaned in to discuss the money, my husband calmly told her, there are about $70,000 in assets in the bank. The life insurance beneficiary is Susan, so that will go to her. But I plan to leave all the bank assets to William. Lisa thought for a moment. Well, I guess it can't be helped that the life insurance goes to Mom. $70,000, huh? I thought there would be more. But then Lisa suddenly raised her voice. What about the family home? It's in a great location and the land is spacious, so it must be worth more than $100,000, she exclaimed. At Lisa's words, William also excitedly asked my husband, That's right, Dad. What about the inheritance of the family home? My husband spoke quietly, I'm going to put the house in Susan's name. After all, she's the one living there. Upon hearing this, William and Lisa strongly protested. What? That's not fair. Mom's getting the life insurance too, isn't she? The life insurance will mostly be used for funeral expenses and other costs, William argued. Even so, I'm getting the short end of the stick if I only get $70,000 and Mom gets a house worth more than $100,000. That's why I'm saying I'll give all the money in the bank to you, Lisa added. We don't need that petty cash. Forget about the bank money, just leave the house to Liam, they continued. My husband and I exchanged glances and nodded in agreement. Then my husband reluctantly told them, Fine, I'll leave the house to William and all the bank money will go to Susan. Is that okay? All right, William and Lisa celebrated with a triumphant pose. However, my husband continued, as I mentioned earlier, your mother is currently living in that house. Even if the ownership is transferred to William after my death, I want Susan to be allowed to continue living there. William and Lisa brushed off my husband's words in their excitement about obtaining the house. To make sure they understood, my husband reiterated the condition. The condition for William inheriting the family home is that Susan is allowed to live there while she's still healthy. William and Lisa, are you both okay with that? Reluctantly, they agree. Yeah, we get it. Father-in-law is so persistent. Hearing their words loud and clear, my husband told them, all right, I'll make sure to include this in the will. William and Lisa left the hospital room in high spirits, discussing how to spend the $100,000 they had just received, without even saying goodbye to us. A month later, my husband's condition took a sudden turn for the worse. The hospital did everything they could, but they couldn't stop the progression of the cancer, and my husband passed away. While I was busy organizing the funeral as the chief mourner, William and Lisa were visibly restless. Even during my eulogy, they whispered to each other and quietly left the funeral home. They never returned after the funeral. When I got home, I noticed the lights were on. Feeling suspicious, I opened the door to find William and Lisa waiting inside. What were you two doing, leaving in the middle of the funeral? I exclaimed, but they just smirked. We couldn't be at the funeral. We had to prepare for our move, they replied nonchalantly. Looking around, I noticed that the furniture in the house had been switched with William and Lisa's. My belongings, which should have been in the room, were piled up haphazardly near the entrance. What's going on? I demanded. Lisa quickly interjected. From today on, we'll be living in this house. It'd be nice if you, mother-in-law, went to a nursing home or something. Are you serious? I asked incredulously. Yeah, we're totally serious. You old people should retire already, William added. Shocked that they would do such a thing on the day of the funeral, I quickly changed my attitude and smiled at Lisa. Fine, go ahead, do as you please. William and Lisa were taken aback by my easy acceptance. So you're really going to a facility? Lisa questioned. I'm healthy enough to live alone in this house, so I'm not going to a facility yet. For now, I'll just find a place to live until I settle down, I replied calmly. Satisfied with my response, the couple sent me on my way. 1 month later, I received a call from Lisa. Mother-in-law, she said urgently, a lawyer just called and said that the house isn't under Liam's name but yours. What's going on? Well, about that, I began, explaining to Lisa about the conditional will my husband had discussed with both of them. He told you both that the house would be under William's name as long as I was able to continue living there. Now that you mention it, he did say something like that to make sure there was no confusion later on. My husband made sure to include that in his will. He should have told you in the hospital room. But that doesn't mean we have to give it back. Under a conditional will, if the conditions aren't met, you lose the right to inherit, Lisa retorted. The moment you kicked me out of the house, you lost the right to inherit it. I replied firmly, recalling the conversation I had with my husband in the hospital room. I was furious that they had called my husband as good as dead. My husband was also quite angry at the two of them, making comments that seemed to wish for my early death. However, I had a faint hope that if I died and left William alone, he might revert back to his kind self. If I could continue to live peacefully in our home, even after my husband's death, I was willing to let the ownership of the house go to our son. So I held on to that glimmer of hope. I had also hoped that your hearts would change with my husband's death, which is why I agreed to his proposal. The conditional will was your last chance. I mean, you anticipated this might happen, Lisa conceded. I didn't want to, but you two kicked me out on the very day of the funeral, I reminded her. I never thought you'd treat your parents so carelessly, but thanks to that, I've made up my mind, I declared firmly. Made up your mind to do what? Lisa retorted angrily. To kick you two out of that house and cut ties with you, I responded, my tone unwavering. Well, we won't accept that. This house is ours. We're not going anywhere, Lisa continued defiantly. Liam knows a lawyer, you know. We'll have him do something about it. I knew it was too late for Lisa's struggles to change anything. I simply told her, do as you please, and hung up the phone. The next day, I was called to a cafe by William and Lisa. As soon as I arrived at the designated cafe, the two of them bowed their heads. Mom, I'm sorry, William began, and Lisa echoed his sentiment. Mother-in-law, I apologize. William, who had heard everything from Lisa, consulted with a lawyer he knew and was told that the will was legally binding. He was also explained that since he had broken the conditions, he no longer had any ownership of the family home. Our lawyer friend told us that if we don't leave immediately, we could be sued for trespassing, and we wouldn't have a leg to stand on, William explained, his expression solemn. Mom, please give up the inheritance, he continued. What? We want you to give us the house, Lisa added. I was utterly disgusted with William and Lisa, who still only thought of their own interests even after hearing everything. There's no way I'm agreeing to such a selfish request, I replied firmly. But we'll be in trouble without the house, William protested. What's the problem? Just move out, I suggested. In a barely audible voice, William began to explain their debts and why the family home was absolutely necessary. After I left, Lisa immediately looked up the market value of the house. She discovered that the land was worth much more than they had thought. Lisa suggested to William that they should sell the house quickly while the price was high and get their hands on the cash. William agreed, and the two of them seemed to have been indulging in extravagance for the past month in celebration. Living it up like that, where did you get the money? I questioned, my disappointment palpable. I went into debt. I thought I could pay it back right away if I sold the house. At least a half, Lisa cried, pleading with me. Mother-in-law, please, we can't pay back the debt unless we sell this house. Don't let our family suffer. Don't let your family suffer. How can you say that? I answered indignantly. You two are calling my husband, who was fighting his illness, a failed death and wishing that I'd die soon, weren't you? Yeah, you heard that. Why should I help people like you? This house holds memories with my husband. You two kick me out of it. I will not allow you to sell my memories with my husband as long as I live. William desperately clung to me with a pitiful voice. Then give me the money from the bank. I'll use it to pay off the debt. Huh? Weren't you the ones who said you didn't want that dirty money? I retorted. Don't you get that you don't have the right to take that cash anymore? Damn it, if Lisa hadn't said anything unnecessary, we'd have the cash by now. Lisa lashed out at Liam, who regretted his actions. Excuse me, Liam, you were happy when you heard you'd get the house too. He's your father, so do something about it. It's your fault, so you do something about it, I calmly told the two who started fighting. If you're going to have a marital fight, do it later. Just as Liam's lawyer friend said, I'll sue you for trespassing if you don't leave right away, they stopped arguing and hurried back to their house. They then packed their belongings and left in a rush. Afterward, the two searched for a new home, but with their debt, the only place they could rent was a rundown apartment that looked like it was about to collapse. Because they borrowed as much money as they could without worrying about the interest, planning to pay it back quickly, their debt just grew larger. Even though they were working, it seemed like it would be a long time before they could fully pay it off. I returned to my own home after a month with everything going as planned with my late husband. It was unexpected that my son and his wife tried to sell our home and ended up squandering money and going into debt. But everything else went according to plan. It might have been an expensive lesson for William and Lisa, but it was a good opportunity for them to reflect on their actions. Finally, living a peaceful life in this house filled with memories of my husband was the happiest thing for me. I'm sure my husband is watching over me from heaven.